as we've all heard, everything's about weight loss right now, and it's for a good reason. I mean, right now in North America, 2/3 of us are either overweight or obese, and this is having a direct link to our health, whether it's an increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke. We can name a number of these things, and we're seeing a direct correlation of these in the science. So weight loss is a serious issue, and I know a lot of people are really struggling with it, and a lot of people are actually embarking on a great plan. They're starting to get active and they're starting to eat better, but even with that, some people still struggle with specific biochemical imbalances. What does that mean? That means that we need to start to figure out how to treat the person. We can't always just rely on what Dr. Oz is saying. We can't always just rely on what we read in the paper. We need to start treating the person. So if I have 3 people in front of me, they could all be overweight for completely different reasons, and we need to start looking at that. One of the first areas when we start to address the individuals, we got to figure out, is their engine burning? Is their metabolism working properly? And the way that you start by looking at this is understanding their thorough hormone picture. Everybody talks about thyroid. This is a very important place to start. However, most of my patients, when they come to see me, have not had their thyroid addressed or tested properly. When you're doing the blood test for the thyroid, you need to be including the following: TSH, free T3, free T4, antithyroid globulin, and antithyroid peroxidase. If you don't have any of those tests done, you don't have a thorough understanding of what your thyroid is doing. And your thyroid is the rate limiting step that governs fat burning. So it's very important we look at that, and there's a lot of people out there who have thyroid issues who have no idea. The next part of the hormones we want to look at are obviously the estrogens, the testosterones, and the progesterones. Any imbalance here, and we could be dealing with somebody who gains fat easier, who doesn't burn fat as well, or retains water. A lot of people are actually holding on to water weight. And the final part of the hormones that we investigate are the adrenals. And your adrenals are actually the tiny glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they are in charge of pumping out the hormones cortisol and DHEA. And this is imperative to understand because we're all stressed to some degree. Stress affects everyone, but we need to understand how our adrenals are performing, because as we age, our adrenals are actually in charge of the hormones more and more as we go. Hidden food sensitivities are one of the biggest areas of hidden weight gain right now, and a lot of people equate allergies and sensitivities in the same sentence, but they're actually very different. And what we need to realize is that a delayed allergy is actually a sensitivity. Biochemically, these can be involving antibodies such as IgG, IgA, and IgM. And if you've got a reaction to a food and any one of these antibodies are spiked, what they're doing is creating inflammation in your body. And if you create inflammation, you're going to retain water and you're going to have a harder time burning fat. So there's a very simple blood test that we can start to run and make sure that we're looking to find out what's going on with, if anybody has any specific food sensitivities. Weight gain is one of the biggest areas that we investigate food sensitivities for, but also people with IBS, skin conditions, joint pain, etc. And it's very important to understand that just because you don't feel bad right after a meal doesn't mean that you're not going to react to something 1, 2, or 3 weeks later. And that's the difference between an immediate allergy and sensitivity. Many people may not realize, but we actually have 10 times more microbes in our bowel than we do the entire human cells in our whole body. And that, when you think about it, it's a big number. The reason why I bring this up is that a lot of us have unwanted microbes such as yeast, fungus, or pathogenic bacteria that are actually have taken up shop in our small intestine, and they're actually robbing us blind of a lot of nutrients that are important for fat burning and for proper metabolism. Not only that, these toxins that are released from these microbes can actually create an inflammatory response that's really going to slow down everything that we're trying to do to get people healthy, well, and feeling and looking their best. So it's very important to start to understand that if we want to understand what's going on in our bowel, we need to do some functional medicine diagnostics. And there's a simple stool test that we can run. And unfortunately, this is not run by most medical docs. We need to be looking at much more detail. Is there inflammatory markers? Are there any yeast? Are there any fungus? Are there bacteria or even parasites? And if they're there and we find them, we can treat them naturally. And this is a very, very helpful map to understand the next step. As one of my favorite profs used to say, it's not what we eat, it's what we absorb. And if we have things that are in there that are blocking the absorption, we're not going to be as healthy as we could be. Nutrient deficiencies are very common. many of us are either on a medication, or perhaps we have a good time once in a while, or we enjoy that McDonald's burger once in a while. We live life, and it's not about being an extremist. This is something that I really profess to everyone, is that, you know what, let's live a good life, but let's understand what our thresholds are, and let's not exceed them all the time. Most people who are living a good balanced life do at times get exposed to toxins or to stressors that will deplete us. And if we become too depleted in a lot of our nutrients, we're going to have an impaired metabolism, and we're going to have a harder time burning fat, let alone preventing disease. So this is very important for us to address for any situation. And what I do and what I'm really passionate about is functional medicine. And functional medicine is a set of tools that we can understand at a very detailed level what each person's specific nutrient levels are. For example, we all need certain trace minerals to have the thyroid working properly. And so we need to understand, not just by what we're reading, again, in books and in the papers, but we need to understand what it is for you and how we're going to fix you. So make sure that you're having a doctor that's going to look into those with you. I think it's important that we realize that weight management, or effective weight management, is not just about calories in and calories out anymore. It's not just about getting on the treadmill for 10 hours a day to burn fat until we can't stand up anymore. We really need to realize that there are potentially some hidden issues that are involved that are not so obvious to the average person. And what I really like to encourage everyone to do is work with a primary care practitioner, whether that's a naturopathic doctor trained in functional medicine, whether that's a medical doctor that is also trained in this area. But find somebody that is going to help you treat the root of the problem and start to uncover the layers that are behind why it's difficult for you to burn fat. So this is something that everybody can look at, but everybody is going to be on a slightly different program than the next, and that's what really needs to be addressed.